Hi there, this is Catherine. Thanks you for listening to my SEO Tips micro podcast. So, before we get into today's SEO tip, I just wanted to share with you the ways you can support the podcast if you're enjoying all the tips and finding them useful. So, you can send me a donation at buymeacoffee.com/Catherine W. Ong, O-N-G. And that's Catherine with a K. Any and all levels of donation are appreciated. It will help me offset the cost of producing the podcast. So that's buymeacoffee.com/KATHERINEWONG. I'd also encourage you to subscribe to our email list to make sure you're not missing any future episodes or any other news about the SEO Tips podcast. And to do that, you'd go to wostrategies.com/newsletter. Okay, on with today's tip.
So I think you're going to like today's tip. We're going to be talking about persuading people to adopt a new approach. Hello, and thanks for listening to SEO Tips today. So today's tip is related to one way that you can move your clients when you're trying to persuade them about a new approach to SEO or digital marketing. So I picked up this tactic when I was in a sales role working for the Points of Light Foundation years ago. And the tip is actually pretty simple. So it's human nature to want to be persuaded by your peer set. I call this the keeping up with the Joneses tactic. So while I was at the Points of Light Foundation, part of my goal was to persuade people to buy this volunteer management software. And I quickly realized that for some of the prospects I had in Florida, they were more persuaded by my discussion of their peers in Florida who had switched to our software than they were to any of the other points I was making. So as I collected more clients who had switched to our software, that became a huge part of my selling technique. In fact, one of my sales prospects was persuaded entirely just by the number of other peers in the state who had switched. So now I use this in my SEO work by doing competitive analysis. I work a lot with federal agencies, and one of the things I tend to do pretty regularly is to persuade them to do something that seems new to them or perhaps not approved by the government quite yet, or they feel like it isn't. And so what I generally do is I'll track down every other government agency that has executed on that tactic before and present that data to my clients. For instance, if you're trying to persuade a federal agency to run any sort of paid online media, that's a relatively new tactic for them. And in this case, presenting all the other federal agencies that have gotten approval to run paid ads tends to help a bit. In other instances, I've done some LinkedIn research, pulled out the staff that are employed at some of the top online competitors as a way to persuade my client that they perhaps might be under-resourced. And I also sometimes will pull what other tactics their competitors are using to support their overall online marketing program. And I'll present those to the client when I'm trying to nudge that client to maybe launch a new engagement on a new to them social media platform. So anyway, that's your tip for today. Deploy the keeping up with the Joneses tactic when you're trying to persuade your clients to adopt a new approach that they're hesitant about. Thanks for listening. Come back tomorrow for another SEO tip.